Welcome back to the Aura podcast. I'm Erica, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Brodbeck, a psychology professor at the University, Algoma University.
Mhm.
How about we start with you telling us a little bit about your interests in
Sure.
psychology, your background in education, all of that fun stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I guess my educational background. I'll do that first. I'm oddly enough, I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, though I moved away when I was 2. Like, it's just dumb luck that I'm back here because I got a job. My hometown really is London, Ontario. So I went to Western for my undergrad, a BA, honors BA in psychology that I got in 1988. 1989, I got a master's degree in psychology from the University of Toronto. Oh, my honors thesis was it was called Central Place Foraging and Spatial Memory. No, Spatial Memory and Optimal Foraging in the Rat, which is an extremely ambitious title. Has six experiments. It's twice as long as my master's thesis. My master's was on at the University of Toronto in 1989, and that one's called One Trial Associative Memory in Black-capped Chickadees, and that was literally half as long, that thesis. And then in 1993, I got my PhD at the University of Toronto. Comparative tests of memory and storing and non-storing bird species. You probably get the idea here that I study memory in non-humans. I would say broadly, memory, the evolution of cognition and memory. So I've also studied humans, and I've studied other things besides rats and chickadees. So yeah, that's what I'm into. And I've done some stuff with psychology. Students would know what this is. I've done some stuff in implicit memory and priming in people, and I've written some theoretical stuff. But yeah, mostly I'm interested in the evolution of cognition, I would say, and science communication as well, which is that's another thing that I'm quite interested in. But yeah, that's the stuff that I do, and that's my educational background. Oh, I did a postdoc at Western for 3 years from 93 till 96. Yeah, so that's like a postdoc isn't really, you're not a student anymore, but you're not a professor. You're sort of some weird limbo thing, and there's no box to check in any forms. I'll say that. But yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Well, nice that somebody thinks that. It pays the bills.
Well, I'm a psych major, so this is all very interesting to
Oh,
me.
good. Okay.
Yeah. And I know that you also, like, I guess in your free time, also in lectures, you podcast.
Yes,
Your lectures and then you podcast. I think I read that you podcast with your wife, and I
I
think
do.
I saw that it was the longest running Canadian podcast.
It's one of the longest running. It is probably the longest running Canadian couples podcasts. That's a genre that's out there where people who are a couple talk. We've been doing ours since July 29th, 2005. So I started podcasting when a lot of my students were literally toddlers. So I do that. I podcast all my lectures. They've been downloaded since 2006. They've been downloaded about 2.2 million times all over the world. I do one about Mad Men, which is my favorite TV show. As you can see in the background here, I'm sitting in Don Draper's apartment. It's not really, it's a virtual background. It's actually just my house I'm in. I do one with the guy who used to be our university librarian here at Algoma, but he's now an archivist at Queen's. It's called Tangential Convergence, and we talk about technology, history, and science fiction. I do 2 with my friend Anthony, one on retro television and one which is called Best Episode Ever. And there's one called the Marshall McLuhan Variety Hour, which I can't even describe what it is. Just go to mmvh.ca and listen. What else do I do? Oh, Spit and Twitch is the animal cognition podcast. So I interview people who are in the field about animal cognition. That's been a project that I've been running for a few years now. There's probably others. Oh, I've been doing one recently with a friend of mine who emigrated from Russia just as Putin attacked Ukraine. So I'm doing that with my friend Daniel, who's also a psychologist. He's emigrated, which as one should get out of Russia, and he's in Vancouver now. He's in Vancouver now, and so I do some with him too. And then yeah, you just mentioned the one I did with Isabelle Michaud, who also has taught French for us at the university, and that's called Broken Area, and we've been doing that for. I just released episode 454 today, but there's 117 other episodes that you can't find that I still have of an old podcast we did. So yes, it's a hobby that I have, and that's what explains all this equipment I have. When we all went online for I was like, oh, I can do that. I'd rather do that. This is easy. My commute's right here, and I've got better equipment than anybody. So yeah, anyway, I'm rambling. Stop me when I ramble, because I'll just talk for the next 40 minutes. Like I won't let you get a word in edgewise. So
It's cool. Yeah, so that's a very interesting hobby to have. It's talking.
It's something to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been into technology for a long time, and oh geez, in the early 2000s, I used to watch a show called The Screensavers, and they were talking about podcasts, and that's where it comes from. I mean, it's completely from watching the TV channel Tech TV that doesn't really exist anymore. And it turns out I've become friends with a guy who used to be one of the assistant, production assistants slash like associate producers on that show. When and he lives in LA. It's really weird. It's a weird community of people, and I do all that that's not for money or anything. It's just a stupid hobby. It's like riding a bike. You just do it.
Yeah. Okay, so going back to psychology,
Mhm.
what drew you to psychology as a master's, as like an
Yeah.
18-year-old, 17-year-old looking, what am I going to do with my life?
I was going to help people who had mental health problems. That was what I was going to do. I was going to save the world. I was going to cure the sick. I found it very quickly. I have enough psychological problems of my own. That's why most people, I think, go into psychology. I would say 80%, just a guess, but I would say it's that high. Eventually, you learn a couple of things. The first thing you learn is that clinical programs are very difficult to get into. That's the first thing. But you also learn that psychology is pretty broad, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. And I was an undergrad, and I was in a second year class, and I saw an explanation of an experiment done by a guy named Sternberg, and it was amazing. So I was like, oh, I want to do that. And then I worked in a lab for a few years, like over the summer, sort of for a year when I was in third year. And the person who I worked for said, you're good at this. Maybe you should go to grad school. And I'm like, I don't know. And then I thought, well, I wouldn't have to buy a suit and learn how to tie a tie if I kept going to school. So I kept going to school. So yeah, it was originally the thing we all do, which is I want to help people. And then eventually it was like, I really don't want to do that, but I'd like to discover something. So that's why I started doing it. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have any advice then for students who in their first year,
yeah,
and then maybe even students throughout as they go on and become upper year students?
I mean, I think for no matter what you're taking, no matter what your major is, I think you do the reading before you come to class. If you do the reading before you come to class, you're going to be ahead of, first of all, you're supposed to do the reading before you come to class. But most people don't. And if you do, you're going to literally will be ahead of a lot of the students in the class. That's the first thing. So that's pretty cool. Like you're actually going to be ahead of people, but it's also the case that you're going to understand lectures better. And that's true for anybody. The other thing is time management. And I mean, it seems really, what year are you in?
I'm third year psychology. Okay. Yeah.
So, eventually you learn how to manage your time, or you start failing classes. I mean, that's just how it works, or getting D's on papers, just because you're not managing your time properly. So a lot of it is just writing stuff down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to study this today. I'm going to study this for half an hour and take a break. And when you plan your studying, when your tests are, they're on the freaking course syllabus. Just look at it. Oh, there's a test in 2 weeks. Maybe I should start studying a half an hour a night. Then, if you do that, you don't have to study for 5 hours the night before. In fact, when you get to the night before, it's all about confidence. You look through stuff and go, I know that, I know that, I know that, I know that. I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to go put Netflix on. I'm going to do whatever, make a podcast, whatever you want to do, whatever your hobby is, go for a bike ride, instead of sitting there and then, staying up to 4 o'clock in the morning, showing up for the test. And I know who's done this because I was an undergrad too. And I can look around a room and I can see the people who pulled all-nighters, and that doesn't work. What works is actually knowing things. So, and you do that by studying on small bouts. And again, that's true of anybody. The key thing for psych students is in your 2 stats classes is not to fall behind. And that's easy to fall behind, and it's easy to not fall behind. You don't fall behind by doing the work if you can, whenever you can, and you'll be fine. Stats can be scary for a lot of people, but it's really not that hard. It's the metacognition there's hard. It's hard to know what you know, but for a lot of people, but really seriously, it's not that bad. But yeah, just keeping up with your classes. It's not just psych students, everybody. Do the reading, ask. And the other thing is ask questions in class. When I say in class, does anybody have any questions or anything I can answer? I'm actually asking you that question. This isn't just me filling time, because if I wanted to just fill time, I could, I don't know, I could talk about Mad Men because it's my favorite TV show. I could talk about hockey because I like hockey. I could just waste time if I felt like it. When I say are there any questions, I really want questions. And if you have none, I'm going to work under the assumption that you understood everything I just said perfectly. Don't be afraid, especially if you're in a class of more than like 5 people. Someone else has the same question. And you're going to look like a hero if you ask their question to them. So there's also that.
What you think, like the university experience versus you think Algoma's university experience, like what makes Algoma different than maybe what you experienced?
Okay, now I went to Western, and for the first couple of years, my classes were very big. Most of them, not all of them. There's this myth that all classes at Western or U of T have 500 people in them, and all of our classes have 3. And it's none of that's true. My interest psych class had 400 people in it. Of course, the most popular course at the time, I don't know if it still is, at Western for undergrad psych students was human sexuality, because it was fun and the prof was amazing. That had 600 people in that class. On the other hand, I was in classes with 12 people and 8 people in 4th year and 3rd year. So the biggest difference is my early classes were a lot bigger. So let's think about stats. My intro statistics class, which was called Psych 281 at Western, it's not called that anymore, but it was, and it had a couple hundred people. Intro stats here has maybe 30 or 40. That's a big difference. The advanced stats course that I took, which is equivalent to our Psych 3256 that I teach, it had 150 people in it. Mine's got 20. So that's the biggest difference. The other thing is teaching people multiple times. Now, again, it's not the case that you don't get the same person more than once at Toronto or Western or Queens or McGill or anywhere big, but you will get us more than once. Like, if you're in a class, if you're taking intro psych and, you have the misfortune of Paul Dupuis teaching you, thank you, misfortune. I'm kidding. He's my friend. But if, let's say, you're going to get Paul again.
Yeah.
If you have me you're going to get me again. You can try to avoid me. People do. Many people, just people on the street. But you will see us again. So we can write really good letters of recommendation for grad school, for jobs, for med school, for law school. And we can be our letters can be very personal, because I can say, oh, I've known Erica for this many years. We did this. Oh, she interviewed me on a podcast once. Like, that's the kind of thing that likely wouldn't come up in a letter of recommendation as much at a big school. So we get to know the students better, and they get to know us, which is probably a blessing and a curse on both ways too. Yeah.
And what advice would you have for anybody who's looking to do maybe their master's, maybe their PhD, like going further?
Going all the way. Yeah. The first piece of advice is it's really tough to become an academic now. So if your goal is to be a professor, have a backup plan, because you can get these jobs. These jobs exist. We hire people all the time, full-time people, but it's kind of like my friend Mike, a friend of mine who's at University of Georgia. University of Georgia? I don't know. He's in Atlanta and it's in Georgia and it's University of something. Anyway, Mike says he says it's like becoming a professional baseball player. There's a lot of really good ball players in the world, and sometimes you get lucky and get picked to go play for the whatever team. I don't know if it's quite that selective, but it's close. So it's hard to get these jobs. So first of all, is have a backup. The second thing is, if you like school, you'll really like graduate school, because all you do is school. It's your job. If you don't like school, it's a real mistake going to graduate school. Get to know, and to get in, you need letters of recommendation and all that stuff. Experience. The experience you get doing an honors thesis is fine. I think about, for example, my daughter who's doing a PhD right now, and she did her undergrad actually at Algoma, and she did her thesis with Paul Dupuis on video game violence and puzzle games, and I don't know what it was. and she's doing her research now, and for a PhD is on the neural basis of migration in white-throated sparrows. Got into the family business, and it's the case that no one cared what her undergrad honors thesis was on. So just because you think, oh no, I want to work on with functional MRIs for my PhD or for my master's, I won't get that experience. It doesn't matter. You wouldn't get it at Western either, because they're not going to let you near the million zillion dollar machine anyway until you're a graduate student. So work hard, find something you like if you want to do grad school. And we have a really good record in our program of sending people to grad school and things like med school and law school as well. I can tell you that we are viewed very well out there because we send students off to grad school all the time, you know. So the biggest piece of advice is work hard and find stuff you like and do those things I talked about. Because when I write you a letter of recommendation and I can say, and Erica always did all the reading before class, and when she came to ask me questions in my office hour, they were really good questions and they were very insightful. Like if I can actually say that, you get a better chance of getting into grad school. Also, if you really like student poverty, you'll enjoy graduate school. Like if you really like ramen and futons, grad school's great. You just live like that till you're 30 instead of, or 25 or 20, not 25, 27, let's say. I mean, I finished when I was 27. That's fast. I got very lucky. All my experiments worked, but you know, people still like you're 30, 32 years old. Not everybody wants to live like that. So it's a choice, and it's a hell of a choice, and it's great. It's great. It's also awful, just like everything. Yeah.
It has its pros and its cons.
Just like anything. Yeah.
Yeah. And going off research, I know that I think in the biology department, they have opportunities for research for students, like they can volunteer. Does that exist for psychology students?
Sure. You just have to find somebody who you want to work with who's got a project running.
Yeah.
I'll say that when you do your honors thesis, you will be doing science, and you will be doing it, and you'll be getting your hands dirty. I mean, not, figuratively, maybe depending. So I guess probably had a student do some stuff on chickadee foraging a few years ago. I think he got his hands dirty literally as well. And I think he got a few soakers out in the woods behind the school. But those opportunities definitely exist. And the other big thing is, so there's those opportunities, but there's also the opportunity to be a TA perhaps. So if we have classes that need TAs, then, we hire, of course, undergrads, because we don't have grad students. So, but yeah, that certainly exists just with us as much. We work very closely with the biology department. We're part of the School of Life Sciences. So we work very closely together with those folks. A lot of our courses, probably half the courses I teach are also biology courses. So, it's pretty common. Yeah.
Good. That was my last question. So we're all good.
Really? Wow. That was quick.
If you want to talk more, we can definitely talk more.
I mean, I guess the biggest thing I would say is that I want people to know that, and I think the students know this, and I know the faculty know this. There's something we get caught up partially because so much of our culture is what's the word I'm looking for? Influenced by American culture. Oh, of course, we watch American TV, we listen to American music, whatever. And in the States, there's a lot more differentiation between universities as far as their quality. That just isn't the case here. And as I've said, we send, the 2015, the year my daughter graduated from undergrad, we sent 5 people to graduate school of 15 people in the honors program. And no one said, well, I don't know what Algoma is. I mean, they all, and they got external funding from people like NSERC and SHIRK. So it's one of these things where I think some people are concerned because, we're small. And you know what? Nobody cares where you went to university in Canada. And I know, and I can also tell you this, I'm a tenured full professor. There's nothing that can happen to me. I get paid the same if you get into graduate school or not. And you know what? You will if you're good enough, and no one cares where you went to school. We have a really good program. There's all kinds of really good programs at Algoma, and there's all kinds of really good programs at all kinds of other universities too. There's very little to the reason to come to a place like this is it's small and you're going to meet some more people and all those things I said before. But you're viewed when you're applying for, say, grad school, med school, law school, you're viewed literally exactly the same as the student from Western or Toronto or wherever. And if that wasn't true, I have no reason to, like I said, I have no reason to lie to you because I get paid the same either way. So yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't have had my own daughter go to school here in the program I teach in if I didn't think it was quality. So I'll just say that I think that's an important thing for people to know, that this is not the States, this is Canada, and we're a bit different here. We're pretty similar too, but our education system's different, and we should keep that in mind. So as long as people know that, I think it's an important thing. And I've managed to finish the rest of my coffee without, vomiting in my mouth as I did before. So kind of a plus.
Good.
Yeah.
Good interview.
Yeah.
No deaths. We're good.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me and for having this conversation. It was good. Quite fun. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's Saturday, something to do. I guess the only other thing I can say at the end is you can follow me on Twitter at @Brodbeck. And if you look at if you want to follow some of those podcasts, there's broken-area.com, mmvh.ca, bestepisodeever.com, tangentialconvergence.com, scdspodcast.com. And also just go to my website, Dave Brodbeck, and you can find something there, .com, and you'll see a link there to Dave's solo thing. And that's usually just my solo rants. But right now it's also me and my friend, Daniel Barabanov, who escaped from a totalitarian country, talking about what that's like. And yeah, so I'll throw out some plugs there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.